Hello, everybody, and welcome back to From the Fourth Line, a hockey podcast brought to you by me, Emma, and of course, I'm joined, as always, by Marcie.
Hello.
Yes, so we we really appreciate all of the support and likes and retweets that the first episode got, all the plays and everything. It was so much fun for us to record that, and we can't wait to do so many more with you guys. So, yeah, we can jump right into it. I was ready to put the Leafs on the back burner with this episode, and then Thursday, when there's no hockey games today because of American Thanksgiving, of course, we get kind of something that was we knew was a possibility in Sweden, but kind of was a little bit of a news bomb, I guess, with Klingberg being placed on LTIR.
That was an interesting, it was expected because I don't think he's doing very well at the moment. Get the tweet up.
Yeah. No, I don't think a transatlantic flight did him any favors to Sweden. He did make a trip to Sweden, but it's worse than anyone was ever thinking. So Leafs PR announced that Klingberg has been placed on LTIR with a hip injury. It's unsure whether he's going to require surgery or if it's just going to be a long rehab assignment. He won't be available until mid-December. December 12th, I think, is the date where he can be reactivated. So for all of you who have been hating him on the blue line, there's some good news, but of course it sucks to see a guy hurt. And then Leafs in the same tweet announced that Alex Steeves, who is a forward, has been called up from the Marlies. And I have his stats. He's actually been playing really well for the Marlies right now. He's on over a point per game pace with, in 14 games, 11 goals and 7 assists. So that's 18 points. That's over a point per game. He's been really well for the Marlies, despite the fact that from what I've seen, they haven't had the greatest of starts to their season. But
yeah, I know
I feel like you've been following them more than I have, Marcie. So.
Yeah, I have the Marlies notice on, which is always fun. Like if there's a Leaf game on and the Marlies are playing, it's an experience because it's just like we're either all losing or all winning. But yeah, he's been on fire so far. He's had a really good start to the season, and I'm really happy that he's playing with us now. He's back. He's another one of he's just my little guy.
Yeah, so little guy, it is unsure what the Leafs are going to do with Steeves. They haven't said anything as of yet on if Keefe is going to play him, if he's going to come along to the road trip, or if it's just more of a paper transaction. Hopefully he sees some game time. He does have 6 games over 2 seasons already with the Leafs. But only 1 point over those games. Some more injury news as well. I know we talked about Timmins last episode, but he is expected and will be reactivated from LTIR for Friday's game against Chicago, and will be replacing Benoit on the third D pair. So that's good. It's good to see him back. It will be his season debut because, of course, if you guys remember, he got hurt in the preseason. He never made the starting lineup for opening day. So it's good to see him back. We'll see, kind of how that changes the Leafs defense. I hope it's good.
Yeah.
So,
I'm hoping he brings what we need back because, it's something new and just the energy because our day is miserable most of the time anyway, but especially at the moment it's not brilliant. So I'm hoping Tim is coming back
and then
bring back what we need.
I hope so too. And of course, one more piece of injury news, because one is the Leafs can never do anything in singularity. It also has to be all at once or nothing at all. Yarncroke at the end of yesterday's practice blocked a shot, and was hurt apparently, and he was absent from today's practice because of it. Sheldon Keefe did say post-practice in the press conference that he went for imaging and it all came back clear, so it probably is just a nasty bruise, but he will be a game time decision for Friday. In the result that he doesn't play Friday, that'll move, based on the lines we saw in practice today, it'll move Robertson up to the second line on that right side, and Robertson will also get a shot at the second power play unit if that happens, and then that also moves Gregor up to the third line, and then that brings Reeves back into the lineup, which is something we don't really want.
No.
But we will see, Bobby it's something we don't want, but Bobby McMahon was sent back down to the Marlies, but there's rumors that that's just a paper transaction. But with Alex Steeves being brought back up, we'll see how that works. Does Alex Steeves go to the left side? I feel like we'll find out a little bit more on what the bottom half of the lineup will look like closer to Friday's game time, which, by the way, for those of you who do not know, it is at 2 p.m. So unfortunate for all of our Canadian people who work 9-to-5 jobs, you will miss tomorrow's game. But if you are like us students or you are American and you have a job, enjoy an afternoon Leafs game. I do love the afternoon Leafs games. I will say, as a student who does not have to work full-time hours and does not have to worry about, having something to do, it is really nice watching an afternoon Leafs game because it leaves my Friday night free.
Yeah,
but yeah, so that leaves into a look ahead for the Leafs and their upcoming schedule. Yeah, mine's also not great. But yeah, so let's take a look ahead onto the Leafs' upcoming schedule. They play a back-to-back on the road versus Chicago and Pittsburgh Friday and Saturday. So Friday's game is at 2 p.m., like I said. Saturday is at 7. Notable thing about Chicago, though, they've had some news as well, and I think we'll just throw it in here while we're talking about them. They will be without Taylor Hall now for the rest of the season, as he's expected to miss the rest of this season due to knee surgery. He's been out since November 9th after he got injured during a game. And then also, this was kind of a big question mark as well with Chicago, is that Corey Perry was scratched last night and was not at practice today due to quote-unquote organizational decision. It's unsure whether that's something more that's more in the Tyler Seguin missed team breakfast, got scratched for a game. He'll get traded to Dallas, who knows? Or if it's something to do with an upcoming trade. We'll see. If Corey Perry ends up an Edmonton Oiler, we all know what happened then.
God.
We'll all know why he was. What happened there? What happened with that one? And then also with Pittsburgh, there's a couple of storylines to keep your eye out. Alexander Nylander, who is William Nylander's brother, was called up from the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. Back. He played last night with the Penguins, and he's expected to stay up in the lineup while the Penguins battle some injuries. He was on the second line last night against the Rangers, which is good for you. Way to go, Alex.
Killing it. I'm very proud of it.
Oh, absolutely. So it will be a brother matchup on Saturday, a little family reunion. Speaking of the Nylanders, look at this segue that I'm going. It'll also be the first game versus the Leafs for Kyle Dubas, an entire career in the front office.
God.
He's never had a game against a Leafs organization, whether it be at the Marlies level or whether it be at the NHL level, because he's worked with the Leafs and within MLSE and the Marlies for his entire career after his time with the Greyhounds. So we will get to see the nerd and his glasses back in the press box for a Leafs game. Sometimes I miss him.
I miss him all the time.
And now it's in Pittsburgh. It's not at home. So it's not quite the homecoming for Kyle Dubas, but it is a little bit of a matchup. And we'll see who comes out on top. Penguins have been struggling as of late, but who knows? So
Who knows?
I just had a bunch of shit fall off my desk.
Oh my god.
Who knows? But so that's all on the Leafs front. I feel like that's a quick rundown of everything that's going on in Leafsland. I thought it was going to be way shorter this morning when I was starting my notes for this episode.
Yeah, I was sat thinking it's going to be a quiet one
Turns out
for the
there's
Leafs.
more.
No. There's never a quiet day in Leafsland.
Busy Thursday. I guess when there's no hockey games, you've got to do something.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Never a quiet day. Do we want to go over to the Canucks then? Let's talk Vancouver. Let's go across the country and check out the West Coast.
They have
the Canucks. They've been I think probably the biggest shock this season.
Definitely.
Besides, of course, the Edmonton Oilers having the start that they have been, but I think people could see that coming with what they've got going on between the pipes and on the blue line. But the Vancouver Canucks and their stellar performance through the first 20 games has been
absolutely
pretty good. I mean, they did lose last night to the Colorado Avalanche, but you know, it's been good on all fronts. We just ignore that. Fun little stat that I like to throw out. Yeah, fun little stat we got going on here. Quinn Hughes is the first player to hit 30 points as a defenseman league-wide since Bobby Orr did it in 1974-75.
He's just... See, everyone bangs on about Jack Hughes. Quinn is having an absolutely unreal season, and I don't know where it's come from, but I'm really glad that everyone is now realizing. He's always been really good.
Yeah.
Then this has just been like...
Oh, absolutely. Well, yeah, I think a lot of people tend to look at him as potentially like the Hughes brother with the lowest ceiling, only because of where he was picked in the draft. He's the lowest drafted Hughes brother. The way we get to refer to them is so fun. The fact that we have three brothers and they're all first round picks, all top 10 picks. Yes. But yeah, he was the lowest drafted Hughes brother. But also just to show like how good of an offensive season Quinn Hughes is having. Defensively as well, he's also been really great, but he's already matched his career high goals with 8, and we're 20 games into the season. That's unreal. That's crazy. Of course, obviously, the question is, will they regress? Will they fall off? Will they, start losing more games? Who knows? I think they could keep. I feel like maybe we'll see some regression just as the potential for injuries increases, and as they just play more games, there's a bigger sample size to look at. But I do think that they have the potential to make the playoffs this year.
It's the Canucks.
That's my bold prediction that I'm putting in end of November. Oh, absolutely. If I'm wrong by April, someone's going to come back and clip me saying that, but I will own it because I do think that they're going to make the playoffs in a very competitive Pacific division. The Pacific is very, very competitive. More so than I think we're used to with the Pacific. Of course, there's teams that are dwelling at the bottom. For the most part, though, we do at the top, it's steep up there. And so I think, it'll be fun to watch for sure. Yeah.
And as well, Brock Besser, he had his hat trick. I was over the moon for him because he is another one of my little guys. And he's had a really good start to the season as well. He's on 13 goals, 9 assists. That's 22 points so far. He's killing it. He's having a great time. And yeah, I hope he carries on at this pace because everyone was shitting on him last season. And I was not happy about it because it's like give the guy a break. He's had a tough few years. Let him live.
Yeah, I will say Brock Besser definitely had a tough, like on the off ice. He had a tough couple of years, I know. So definitely, you know, of course, obviously his on ice performance is going to be affected. Like a lot of times we think, well, these players should just be able to focus on what's going on. But I think everyone can relate to having a rough time at work if you got shit going on at home. So
yeah,
just something to think about for sure. Like, I think it's great. I think that entire team, just to like give a perspective on how good the offensive production has been from all aspects of the lineup, because it seems like, you know, no matter where you are in the lineup, you're performing really well right now. There has been all of the players with 10 games played so far this season. So if they've played half the game so far this season, have at least one goal, except for Ian Cole. Everyone else has scored at least a goal so far this season, who have played more than 10 games.
Which is just insane, because I am also guilty of this, but everyone takes the piss out of the Canucks because they are just a bit shit. But this year, we can't even just like jokingly take the piss out of them, because they're doing weirdly well. It's like not normal. So I'm hoping this is like their year where they absolutely just fucking just smash it.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see them in the playoffs, for sure. Like, you know, I'm guilty of it myself. I grew up in Toronto. There is a bit of a rivalry between Leafs and Canucks fans out there, for sure. Like, which is surprising considering they're across the country from each other. But for sure, I remember when I was out in BC for a couple of family vacations and stuff, there'd be the Canucks game on, and, you know, you'd walk in, they ask you where you're from at the bar or whatever, and you'd say Toronto, and they're like, oh, you know, do that like, oh, you're a Leafs fan sort of thing, and they're like, Canucks are better. Now back then, you know, back then it was when the Leafs were bad. I will live. Like, it was when the Leafs were bad and the Canucks had the Sedins and they were like firing on those, you know, Luongo was you know, Canucks are great. They're a fun team to watch. I am partial to them. I find I am a little bit partial to them as my West Coast team. I don't get to catch a lot of West Coast games just because 10:30 at night is very late for me to watch a game. But yeah, I think what we can decide from this is that we love the Canucks and we really want them to do well this season.
Literally, because it's hard for me to watch Canucks games because they don't start until 3 a.m. for me, which I don't care how much I love them. I will not do that to myself. Like, I'm not staying up till nearly 6 o'clock in the morning to watch the Canucks. Like, I wouldn't even do it for the Leafs. I have done it for the Leafs in the past, but if it was every single night, no.
Those West Coast road trips, I think, just affect everyone. Players, fans, Marcie in the UK.
I know that. Like,
the West Coast, not a fan of Leafs West Coast road trips.
But when it gets to like 3 a.m. games for the Leafs, I'm going to go to bed early and just set an alarm and just wake up at 3 a.m., watch the game, and then just go to my lectures. Like, because I'd rather do that than stay up till 6, get an hour's sleep, and then go to my lecture. So it's going to be a rough one.
Well, we're not the only ones who seem to be... Yeah, we're not the only ones who seem to be Canucks fans as well, as Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were spotted at the Canucks and Sharks game a couple days ago. Prince Harry, so they were in Vancouver. Obviously, if you follow the Royals to any degree, you know that they spent some time living in BC after they got married, and once they have started to raise their children there. I think they now live in LA most of the time, but the Invictus games are in Vancouver this year. And so Prince Harry was there to do the ceremonial puck drop at the game. So we had an interaction between Prince Harry and Prince Hughes. I think, you know, I was waiting to throw that in there. I so badly wanted to say that on the show.
Yeah, you've been like itching.
Yeah, so it was so funny though, because you see the clips of them. Oh, I have been. I've been sitting. That has been decided as of episode the title for this episode since about yesterday afternoon.
Yep.
I was like, this is what we're calling it.
You
We
just
have no other
messaged me, you're
choice.
like, we're calling
No
it
matter
Prince
what else we
Hughes, I
talk
don't care
about,
what happens.
it's going to be called. I was like, Leafs can trade for Connor McDavid, and we'll still call the episode Prince Hughes.
We've got our priorities in check.
Absolutely. It was really funny actually seeing their reactions to the games and stuff like that, because there was a goalie interference call, which no one understands goalie interference. It is one of those calls that's decided purely on vibes, and it was so funny to watch, two members of the British royal family try to understand goalie interference. Now, Meghan Markle has gone to hockey games before. Yeah, absolutely. Meghan Markle has gone to hockey games before. I think she went to a Canucks game back in 2015. I saw someone post a picture of it on Twitter. But I was like, does Prince Harry know how hockey? Like, I want to know if he knows the interest. Like, I'm sure he knows the general rules of hockey, but I want to know if he knows all of the penalties and everything. Because when I go, maybe this is just because I'm a huge fan of hockey. Like, I have a podcast and stuff. But when I go to the games, I am so annoying to go to games with, because if there is a penalty and I see the hand sign, I can tell you what the penalty is before the ref announces it. So I wonder if he knows what goalie interference is. I mean, no one does, but I want Prince Harry to try and explain icing to me.
Oh my god, that would be so funny. You just go, see, no, you walk up to him and you do what guys do to us. It's like, oh, so you like hockey? Explain icing to me then. Go on, Hannah. Go on, Harry. Fucking grilling Prince Harry on.
Yeah, you like the Leafs? You like the Leafs?
Name 3 Leafs ever.
List the entire 1952 roster. Name 3 Leafs. If you like the Leafs, name the entire 1952 Leafs roster, including captaincy and head coach.
And he just sits and absolutely shits himself.
But yeah, no, I feel like, anyway, love. I will never forget though the time that the Invictus games were in Toronto, and my dad worked at the time at the golf course that they had the golf event at, and Prince Harry was there. I assume he's a golf. Makes sense. And he was there, and my mom was driving through to the back shop. So she was driving through the course in her minivan to go pick something up from my dad's office for him. And she was in the car with my sister, and they're coming up, and you have to stop behind a T block to continue driving on while someone's teeing off. And Harry just turns around, sees my mom's Dodge Grand Caravan that had pop-down TV screens, and waves at her. And my family, they're not big royalists. We have the same sort of relationship that most Canadians have with the royal family, which is cool, you exist and you're on our money. And I think my mom was like, wow. She was a little starstruck. She was like, oh my God, it's Prince Harry. Because he was the hot one.
Oh, he was absolutely
he was the hot brother. But
they were both, I mean, they're both very just average, mid, British white man sort of vibes. But I'd rather have one with hair. So I mean, they're both gonna bolt.
Oh, absolutely. As much as I love Jason Spezza. As much as I love Jason Spezza, I'm sorry, but he has the Prince William hairline.
Prince William hairline.
Apologies to Jason.
We said out of love.
Apologies to Jason Spezza, but yeah. So to all of you, to all the balding hockey players out there, let Jason Spezza serve as a warning, please. Hey, Austin Matthews, I'm talking to you, buddy. Because
I was gonna say, when are we gonna drop Austin?
It's not great some days. Yeah, drop. Okay. Now we're just zigzagging all over North America, because we've talked about the Canucks. Now let's talk about Buffalo. Yes. I feel like we should talk about their goaltending situation. They lost last night. too. I don't have much notes on this because I know you're going to carry the conversation because you've been watching more than I have. But they did lose last night to the Capitals. They lost last night, right? Make sure I got this right.
Yeah, it was
I watched part of
4-3.
that game.
Dylan Strom won it, which was
There we go. Yeah. There we go. I was like, I knew he did. He looked so happy.
Okay, so I've never seen him
Not
smile
to get
that much.
sidetracked.
Like,
I'm so happy that he's finding his place in Washington.
yeah.
He is not a bust. He's not a draft bust. He's just
No.
a late bloomer. Player
Exactly.
development.
He's just a baby girl.
All right.
I just said that.
Absolutely. Not to switch topics, though. Not to switch topics. Let's talk about Buffalo and their goaltending. You can take the lead on this for sure. Go ahead, Marcie.
So I want to know what's happening behind the scenes in Buffalo because all the wrong decisions are being made. Like, they're very much pushing for Devon Levi to start as many games as possible. Like, it's just, he's clearly not ready for it. Like, he's and he's lost 5. That's not what you want from your starting goaltender at all. And it's like you need just send him down, give him time to develop, because you can't just take a goalie out of college and just throw him into the NHL, because that's when people get injured and they just get shit. It crushes the confidence and they don't get the development that they need to understand the game better. Like, he's even last season he played 7 games with Buffalo. He did better. He won 5, lost 2. But even then, it's a very small sample. It's 7 games. That's not a lot. Like, if he'd played more, those 5 games could have been the only 5 good games. And it's I don't understand why they're constantly starting him and pushing for him to play all the time when you've got Luukkonen, who he's been the best goalie for the Sabres this year. He's played now. I forgot. I've not updated that. Yeah, he's played 9. He's won 4. I've got the stats from a few days ago, so it's not completely up to date. But he's got a 9/11 save percentage, which is a lot higher. Because you've got Comrie, he's below 9. Levi's even further below him. It's you've got a very clear starting goalie in Luukkonen, and he's better built for it because he's played last year, he's played in the AHL, he's had his time to develop, and he's had his NHL experience that shows what he knows exactly what's happening with it. And he's got to that level where he needs to move up from the AHL. He needs to come in to the NHL. He needs the time, and no one's playing him. Because not only that's gonna fuck him up development wise, because if he's not getting the playing time, he's just sitting there and he's doing absolutely nothing, and that's gonna be really hard on him mentally as well. If you know that you're the better goalie and you're still not playing, you're not starting. It's why it really annoys me, because I'm he's to not have a miserable season, and they're just completely fucking it up. And it's I see a lot of people on Twitter are talking about well, what are you going to send Levi down just because he's had some bad games? And it's that's not a punishment. It means that he's not ready and he needs the time to develop. And it's it's risky to even start just your skaters, just take them straight from college to the NHL. That's a risk because it's a huge jump. But then if you're doing that with your goalies as well, Like, you are setting up fair, and it's not fair on them, because they'll be like, oh, cool, I get to go straight to the NHL. That's great for me. Like, look at me go. But it's like, you're not going to develop in the way you need. You're not going to learn the differences in the game like you need to. And it really annoys me, and it's something that has really been pissing me off recently, because you can just see how unfair it is on Levi and Luukkonen, because you're not doing the right thing for either of them. That was my little goaltending rant, because
That's your little rant. Yeah, no, I agree
of...
with you. Like, for sure, like having a goalie go from like having I guess we see it more so with players coming up from the NCAA than we do see, but like having a goalie come from essentially juniors. NCAA is essentially junior hockey. I know people are gonna be like, oh, but the levels are a little bit different now, blah 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 blah. But like, in terms of what we're talking about age-wise and the number of time, like, it's about the same. And I think, right, but having a goalie come up from essentially juniors to starting in the NHL is a huge jump. And we don't see it very often. There's a reason we don't see it very often, is because the player development is important and goalie development is important. I mean, I want to say we saw it a little bit with Marc-Andre Fleury, but also that was like 20 years ago. And the game is different. And player development is different. And we understand what players need way more. And also, that's Marc-Andre Fleury. Like, he's won Stanley Cups.
You have your exceptions for everything.
A fantastic goaltender. Exactly. And that's what we talked about last week, is you have your exceptions for everything. For sure. And I think like it's unfair to Devin Levi to keep him up in the AHL. Now this is probably so conspiracy theorist type thing, but I did see a tweet that was like, maybe there's something in his contract that's like saying, oh, we can't send him, that says it was like he can't get sent down to the AHL, which I think I'm like, what? You know, because this is his entry-level contract. So it's like, what 18-year-old kid? How good does a goalie have to be at 18 to be able to get that clause written into his contract? Right? Like, how much, who is his agent? And I want there to go, like, oh, absolutely. I'm like, what? Because I'm like, I'm pretty sure, like, even, like, Sidney Crosby and Connor Bedard don't have that written into their contract, right? That's such a weird thing that I'm like, that's not true. I think it's just mismanagement coming from the Sabres front office. Because, you know, I do see it, and you see it like, it's just rush development. Levi's only 22. He's got a long career ahead of him, I feel like, if he's developed properly. And the Sabres goaltending is young in general. I mean, Luukkonen's only 24. Comrie's older at 28. But even then, like, the fact that you're like, oh yes, our veteran goalie is a 28-year-old. In goalie years, that's like incredible. That's so young, right? Like, you have to think about it this way. Joseph Woll is considered young, and he's the same age as Austin Matthews, and they're talked about in two very different ways. So, I mean, I agree with you totally. Just to throw some stats out, one more stat in there. Buffalo is 19th in goals against with 57. That's more than their goals, not goals allowed. That's their goals allowed. Sorry, not their goals against. That's their goals allowed with 57. They're 19th in the league with that. And then that's more than their goals for, which is out of 51. So it's not like they haven't been scoring, right? Like, you think about, obviously they're running into some issues now with their goal scoring, with Tage Thompson now being out with a wrist injury for a considerable amount of time. That has now led Buffalo into the Patrick Kane rumors, which I don't even want to go there this episode, because I feel like it's just a whole bunch of horseshit about which teams. Every day it seems to be a new 3 teams who are involved with discussions with Patrick Kane. I was like, is the whole fucking East Coast of the league talking to him?
Yes.
No. So I think it's grasping at straws. There's rumors that are getting obviously, like, it could be just his agent, trying to, stimulate conversation around him to make it seem like there's more teams actually, like, interested in him than there actually is. But I do think, like, it's something to keep an eye on. If, you're allowing more goals than you score, it's an issue. That's not something you want. It means you're probably losing games.
Yeah. I just had a little moment who scored his first goal last night, and it was an insane goal, and I'm so happy for him. I love when
God, I saw the replay of that. It was an absolute stunner. It was beautiful. It was a beauty of a goal.
Like, I watched it.
What more could you want for your first NHL goal? Is an absolute, like,
literally, because that's going to be like a goal that gets brought up again and again and again, and it's going to be like one of those, this was a really cool first goal. And it's like, that's good. And the thing is, it's like, I've seen...
Absolutely.
Like, he's played... Yeah, how many games he's played? He's already on 5 points, which, for 9 games he's played.
Already at 5 points, yeah. And he hasn't played 9 games? And he was... 9. Do you have his information? I don't have that off the top of my head.
No, I've got it. It was just written in my notes.
It was written in your notes. Okay.
But yeah, he's on 9 games and he's already on 5 points. And it's like, for someone who was literally just drafted, like, that's really good. And I've seen people on Twitter being like, send him back down to juniors, and I'm like, no, don't do that, because everyone's...
Why would you do that?
Well, literally, because everyone's like, oh, it'll help him, like, if he becomes, like, if he dominates and he scores loads, that'll be really good for his, like, confidence. And I'm like, if he's already attempting goals like the one he scored last night, he does not need any more of a confidence boost. He's already killing it. Like, it's not, like, his development, his confidence development is not a pressing issue. It's not something we have to worry about, because we know, like, from what we've seen already, we know he's going to do really well. And it's like, I'm not even it, but if you have the balls to go, oh, it's my first season and I've not scored yet and I'm just going to try this. If you've got the balls to do that in a game, like, you're going to do really well. And it's like...
Yeah. And for those who are wondering, just because I did Google up his draft information, he was selected 13th overall in this year's draft. So this kid is 18. He's an 05 18-year-old kid.
Oh my God, 05.
From Langley, BC. We'll kind of hope we see him at World Juniors this year for Team Canada. I think we will try and do some sort of preview for World Juniors, just because I have a large amount of national pride when it comes to sporting events. So I want to just pump up Team Canada and talk about Easton Cohen and Fraser Minton a little bit, as they're projected. There was a projected lineup from a couple of writers from The Athletic that came out this week that projected both of those guys to be on the World Juniors lineup for Team Canada, and I want to see them in Sweden because that's where it is. I looked it up.
Oh no, it'd be so good to see them.
Absolutely. Well, do we want to talk PWHL then, and then finish it off with Adam Johnson?
I think, yeah.
Alrighty. Okay, so we're PWHL. Obviously, as we know, last week, I think it was already, the jerseys were released or announced or showcased. Training camps have started this week. So the league is slated to start in January with 6 teams located in Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, New York, Minnesota, and Boston. Now, the New York team is playing in Connecticut, not Boston, not New York. I think it's also like, and you see the jerseys, they don't look exciting.
No.
They
like, I thought, I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw them, I did kind of think like, oh, it's just like team announcements, not even like the jerseys. I was like, oh, cool, like they've got little, these are where we play, these are our teams.
Like
But it's like,
some
no, that's the actual jerseys.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I thought it was going to be something related to be like because we knew training camp was going to start soon when the jerseys were announced. So I thought it was going to be like, oh look, these are our like training camp starting. Here's our practice jerseys or something like that because they look like practice jerseys. Like
They do.
my high school hockey jerseys look the exact same. Are formatted the exact same with just the school name and diagonal lettering across the front and the school colors. Of course, obviously, all the teams have different colors. I would love to know the reasoning behind some of these. Like some of the colors make sense. Toronto, the blue makes sense. You've got the Leaf. It's a very Toronto. Argos are blue, Leafs are blue, Blue Jays are blue. You have some red teams with TFC and the Raptors, but for the most part, blue is the city's color. It's also the color of the city flag for Toronto. Fun fact. Then Ottawa makes sense with the red. All of Ottawa sports teams are red. Literally all of them. So it makes sense. They're also playing in TD Place, which is where the 67s play, which is the AHL, the AHL team. There we go. The junior team. AHL team, not AHL. What is the league acronym? Why am I juniors? Oh my God. This is me forgetting league acronyms. It's not AHL. This is anyway. I'm going to cut this all out. I get to choose all the editing for this episode, so I get to cut out all the embarrassing parts where I forget the league acronyms, such as, what league? The OHL. There we go. You totally knew that and were just going to watch me flounder.
I was like running through like all the ones I can remember, and I was like, not the double, not the W, not the Q,
not ECHL. Like, yeah. At the OHL, not AHL. I was like, no, AHL is the Belleville Senators. Not even in Ottawa. The OWHL. And all of the branding in there is red, so it makes sense. Montreal is actually, I think, probably my favorite. It's this like maroon, this tan color, which is fun. I love that. I was like, if I didn't live in Ottawa, I would be a Montreal fan, I feel like. Or maybe a Toronto fan as well. But
I never thought I'd hear those words come out your mouth.
I know, eh?
Shocker.
I know. I have, I'm not a Habs fan. I appreciate the Habs. I did have to live with my dad, who is a Habs fan, through the 2021 playoffs. That was not fun. That was He would watch every single game and laugh in my face. Yeah. He's a Habs fan who grew up in Toronto because in the 70s, the Habs were good and the Leafs were bad, and that's his explanation for why. But yeah, Montreal, New York is a fun teal color, which again, that one doesn't make sense to me. I don't get where that color came from. I'm sure we'll find like it'll fit into the branding somehow. Minnesota is purple. Again, another one I'm slightly confused. I guess maybe Minnesota Vikings, you can reason that, purple. And then Boston is dark green, which I love the green. Again, still will not be a fan of any Boston sports team. I have standards. It has not been long enough for me to forget 2013 and 2016 and 2017 and 2019. I won't forget. But yeah, and so none of those teams though have logos, have names. So Ian Kennedy, who is from the Hockey News, has actually been putting out a lot of articles and tweets regarding the PWHL. So I definitely recommend go giving him a follow on Twitter if you want to try and follow along with the league. He's been really good in providing that information and even just starting conversation. So that's where a lot of this information has come from. He's been really, really helpful. Not from him directly, but his Twitter has been. There's a lack of communication with the media, like the Writers Association, the Hockey Writers Association, has not received any information regarding how to get media credentials, how to get rosters, how to get player information, anything like that. Like they've been really tight-lipped about it. I think the league isn't sharing a lot. They're not sharing salaries, which is a transparency that we take for granted with the NHL, with everything being so transparent about how much players are getting paid. And I know like they want to do it so that there's not a comparison to the NHL, but I do think it'll be informative for fans to know how much players are getting paid, because it allows you to add, like, give a value to players. Right? Like, it allows you to be like, oh, this player, makes sense on, like, so you're not looking and you're like, oh, how, like, are they all getting paid the same amount? Are they all getting paid different amounts? That sort of thing. They are giving us term information, though, for all of the signings. They are now telling us how many years these players have been signing. There's a max of a 3-year contract as of right now. Not all players are signing 3-year contracts. Some are signed to 1, some are signed to 2. So maybe next year we'll see a little bit more movement between players going between teams. That'll be interesting. We don't know how trades are going to work. We don't know how a draft is, like a entry draft is going to, an entry draft is going to work similar to the NHL. We did have the draft this year for all of the teams to build their rosters, but we don't know what is going to happen for incoming players who want to go pro, how that draft will work, how many rounds it'll be, where it'll be, that sort of thing. It's been a bit of a rushed league. It was only announced on June 30th. I have the date. That was the date that it was announced that this league would be happening. And then in that announcement, they confirmed that games are going to get played this year in January of 2024.
Yeah.
And
it's all been way too rushed.
Very rushed. I mean, if they had everything set and decided behind the scenes before making the announcement, maybe, the fact that it's 6 months between announcement and first puck drop, it'll be a little bit, like, it will feel a little bit less rushed. But there's a lack of information on who's going to be broadcasting the games, where can we watch them, that sort of thing. All things that fans want to know. Fans want to know who they're cheering for, and they want to know where they can cheer for their teams, right? And it's frustrating as someone like me, who I really, really want to go to some of these games. I live in Ottawa. TD Place is so much more accessible to me to get to as someone from where I live, compared to driving, like, going all the way out to Canada to watch a Sens game. So I want to go and watch women's hockey. I love watching women's hockey at an international level, and now I get to do it, right, in my city at a professional level as well. And it's just, it sucks. Like, I'm like, I have no information. There's no information about tickets. There's no information about schedule. Yeah. All we know is a start, like, not even a specific start date. We just know January. And, like, it's annoying. It's frustrating, especially for those who don't live in cities where there are teams, but do want to still support a team. Especially with the fact that there's no team name. There's no logos. There's no sense of brand identity outside of a color and a city, which, if you don't live in that city, it's hard for you to, feel associated and build a sense of loyalty with a color. Right?
Yeah, like, it very much feels like the way everyone's gone about it and, like, setting it all up, and, like, the fact that we're getting, like, absolutely no information, it feels very much like they're just setting it up for failure.
Oh, absolutely. And which is, like, so unfortunate.
No, because it's like women's hockey is already, like, struggling, and it's not getting the support that it needs. And it's like, for them to take a league that had established teams with big fan bases, dedicated fan bases, to then just go, you know what, this isn't good enough for us. We're going to make a new league. We're going to fucking terminate all your contracts. Sorry, bye. Have fun. Like, it's very much, like, making women's professional hockey even more, like, restricted and isolated than it was before. And it's like, it's really shit to watch, because it's like, there's nothing we can do. And it's just frustrating.
Oh, absolutely. Like, you just want to, like, it's not like, if this was, it's not even that people don't want women's hockey. People are upset with this league because they want women's professional hockey to be done right and successful and have a chance to succeed and, go on to potentially at one point match men's hockey. It would be pretty awesome if we could have, like a growing women's professional hockey league that has expansion teams and plays in multiple cities, and it has has the fan base to be able to go play in Australia, go play in Sweden in international games, have outdoor classics. Like, we want that for women's hockey, because women's hockey is so fun and so exciting to watch. And for those who don't watch women's hockey because and have never watched the international, watch hockey at the international level. Go do it. Next time there's a World Cup, there's a rivalry series going on this right now between US and Canada where they're playing a couple of friendlies. Watch the games. They're so fun to watch. But yeah, so there has been some reason, like some information from the league as to why there hasn't been any logos or names and, you know, on the jerseys and any, you know, it seems very rough because the League Players Association made a promise to players when they shut down the PHF, was it? PHL?
Yeah,
to have a league, to have a league for this season, for this 23, more so 24, because it's going to start in January, 24 season. They made a promise, and so they have an obligation, they feel like, to fulfill this promise. Hence why the rush, and why, you know, the timing was too tight for year one to get proper logos and team names because of the process that has to go along with it. Because you can't announce a logo, can't announce a team name, and then in 2 to 3 years decide it's not really working and take a step back from it and, you know, walk away from that brand identity and make a whole new one. It's not going to work. It doesn't work in sports. We don't see it happen very often for a reason. So, but it's frustrating from a fan perspective. I understand the players are very, very excited to be playing professional hockey, and I am very excited for them. And I know it would be really, really hard for them to, you know, have to sit a season on the sidelines for those who aren't going to make national programs to not play any hockey for a year. But I think, you know, it could have been done right, and you've done it without steamrolling the leagues that have already been put in place. You know, for example, there was that deleted Minnesota tweet from the Minnesota team. I don't know if you saw that. It got deleted because it was a statement that was put out by the GM of the Minnesota team that essentially, you know, kind of stated and ignored all of the history of professional women's hockey that came before the PWHL. And it essentially dismissed the fact that there has been professional women's hockey in Minnesota before. AKA, I don't know what's going on in that league, in the comms department. It's really hard to find information. I was looking for internship positions essentially in, like, for this winter, because I thought, oh, it'd be really great to work, you know, professional women's hockey as an internship, whatever, because there's a team there in Ottawa. It'd be great. I'm here in Ottawa, like, why not? And it was so hard to find any information about job postings. There was a couple on, like, a third party that a lot of NHL teams use to post, and the league does as well, to post all their job openings. And there was a couple, and they were all full-time, like, they were full-time positions, and it was like videographer, like social media coordinator, that sort of thing. But there was nothing in terms of coaching. Like, there was no coaching. It was nothing. And even if you wanted to reach out to the league directly, like, you couldn't reach out to the teams individually via email. You could only reach out to the league. And I was like, I'm not going to send my please hire me email to the league's general inquiries email address. Like, what? Yeah. So it's just felt rushed. Feels like there's a lack of information. And honestly, at this point, transparency is kind of key and what we want and what I hope to see from this league. So women's hockey now, because we can't have a fully positive episode, we have to go to a bit of a downer subject. We'll talk about Adam Johnson, just because I feel like we're in such a unique place to have a little bit more perspective on this, because of just the fact that Marcie lives in the UK and goes to Elite League games. So Marcie, take it away. I'll let you lead this one.
Yeah, so obviously everyone knows by now that Adam Johnson died because of injuries that he sustained during a game against the Sheffield Steelers in what has been described as a freak accident, because, surprise, surprise, it was a fucking freak accident. Unlike what a lot of people, specifically balding white men on Twitter,
The
after
racists on Twitter, we can say it.
Yeah, I've been like scrolling through a lot of tweets about it on Twitter, and it's just it's not nice to have to read, because it's like what a lot of these people who are like, Matt Petgrave murdered him. It's like, no, he didn't. And what a lot of people like forget during this whole thing is the fact that someone died, and that he had a life and a family, and all these people are like creating conspiracy theories about it. And it's like, if you unfortunately have seen the clip, it like you can't say that he did it on purpose. It was very clearly an accident. And yeah, Matt Petgrave was arrested on the 14th of November. If I've got that right. On the 14th of November, he was arrested on suspicion of manslaughter. I'm reading this from an article on The Athletic. He was arrested on suspicion of manslaughter, which a lot of people were freaking out about. And I think a lot of the freak out, like, yes, obviously it's horrific for him to have to go through all this when he's already dealing with an unimaginable amount of guilt over what happened. A lot of people were freaking out about it, but as someone who lives in the UK and has a semi-decent grasp on what happens with our legal system,
You know more than I do, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I did A-level criminology. That's about as far as I go. But
Hey,
yeah, basically,
I watch true crime documentaries, so again, you know more than I do.
I'm qualified. Technically,
An A level is still a qualification.
it works. But yeah, so basically, what happens in the UK is, like, when there is an investigation about a death, even if it's like manslaughter, like, you get arrested so they can like interview you and ask you about it, and just like whilst they're sorting it all out and they're going through like the whole process of like working out what happened, you get arrested and then released on bail. He's not been charged, and it's very, very unlikely that he will get charged. But if he does get charged with like the further investigation and the progression to like, basically he would get charged with involuntary manslaughter, which is the reckless act with no intention to kill, which is basically been like, he slipped and didn't keep his feet on the floor, even though that is physically impossible in hockey. And then that when he slipped, his feet came up, his skates caught Adam Johnson's neck. That is the reckless act. But obviously he didn't mean to kill. That's what, if he did get charged with anything, is what it would most likely be. But I think if he does actually get charged, it'd be most likely just a suspended sentence. So just can't slip, fall, and cut someone again. It's bullshit. But you can get put into prison for up to 10 years if it's decided to be necessary, which is not going to happen because it's not necessary. It's just a really unfortunate accident. And I think one thing that, as someone who lives in the UK, I can say with a lot of confidence is our legal system and the police are racist. And with many places, there is a big problem with racism. And I think the fact that Matt Petgrave is black has been a massive reason to why it's been so talked about. because a lot of people in England are racist, and it's really shit. And the court and like whatever happens with like the charge, if it is a more severe like decision than we expected, we all know why. Racism. It's not fun. It's not anything that we want to have to like accept. And obviously, like it'd be like really shit for him. Obviously, it'd be really shit for him.
Oh, absolutely. It would be shit for anyone who would have to go through that.
Yeah, but then if he does get charged for it, that's going to open a massive conversation into like, does that mean that when people fight in hockey, does that mean you're going to get arrested and charged with like aggravated assault? Like if you injure them, like you can't take something that happened as a result of an accident that happened in ice hockey, a sport where people essentially run around on fucking blades.
Well,
and bump into each other. You can't take an accident that happens as a result of that and then charge someone with
absolutely
anything, because it's then it's like what when do you stop? When does it become silly?
Well, it's not even hockey in particular. Like you look at it in any sport, like I know not every hockey and soccer. I'm gonna say soccer, but because we don't have video for this episode either. Marcie just visibly cringed when I said soccer. Soccer is a huge thing in the UK. And like, if a player gets hurt, can they can the guy who hurt them get charged with a crime? Like, it's setting. It's obviously maybe the discussion would be different here in North America because different legal systems, of course. Yeah. But you then start to look back at the previous incidents that we've had with someone getting cut by a skate blade. Oh God, who? It was someone on the Islanders, I think, or was it Oilers? It was Evander Kane. There we go. Still red and blue, so it was Oilers. Evander Kane was cut on his wrist. Like, would that be aggravated assault? Like. And that was fairly recently, and then of course we've had several other cases of that as well. We've had goaltenders that's happened to. We've had other players. Like, it's not the first time this is something that has happened in a hockey game, but it is the first time where, obviously, with social media and it happening in a place where hockey isn't a big of a deal, you have a lot of spotlight from people who are not familiar with the sport.
Yeah,
throwing in their 2 cents, and a lot of times because of the fact that British people are racist. That's a generalization. That doesn't mean all British people. That just UK in general is still a very racist country. Yeah. That you have people who are going to be racist because it was a black man.
That's a massive reason of like why it's like snowballed so much, because ice hockey over here is a very small sport.
Oh,
it's not big.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of people who don't know hockey talking about hockey.
They're going to be wrong.
With like
they've never seen a game before. They don't want. Yeah.
Like I've had conversations with like my family members and people who don't watch hockey who have been like, oh, it looked intentional, and I'm like, I'm not being funny, but if I'm slipping over on ice, I'm not gonna just keep like glue my feet to the ground. I'm gonna like move my feet around to try and rebalance. And it's absolutely. It's not hard to understand, even if you're not on the ice, like you still try to find your balance again, which.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's what I want to, like, that's why I want to say if this was something that happened, North America, Canada specifically, it wouldn't have hit the levels of media sensationalization that it has happened because it happened in the UK. Like, you wouldn't have the BBC reporting on this, or maybe they would, but it would be like a small little 1-paragraph article, right? You wouldn't have this turned in such a massive, maybe, we would still probably have, all of the now new regulations being put in place regarding neck protection across multiple leagues, including the WHL and the Elite League as well. But it was like, it would not have come to this crazy global sense. Like I'm in a Discord server with people who do not like, there's 3 of us in the server who watch sports and watch hockey. And it is like, that's not what the server is about. It's like to talk about books. Like, it's so not to talk about hockey at all. And I had someone who I'm sure probably has no familiarity with the sport sending in a message and already like in their like being like, oh, just, like this happened, because there's a channel about world events, like global events and news, being like, oh, this happened, and got information wrong in their message about describing it. And I was like, guys, this isn't what happened. And I had to sit there and explain to them that, no, this was not done on purpose. No, you got the wrong league that implemented mandatory regulations and neck protection to be worn by players. Like, this is what it's like. Here's some other videos of something similar where no one got hurt, but the person whose legs flew up in the air moved the same way, where you can tell it's not done on purpose. Like, and you have to sit there and you have to explain to people. And, it's unfortunate that we had, like, it seems to have forgotten that a man died in all of this conversation. Like, you have to also think about Adam Johnson and his family, like, what they must be going through, seeing their loved one's death turned into this huge, massive debate that really it shouldn't be turned into. It should be turned into a learning, a tragedy, obviously. It should be turned as a way to remember what has been described by family members, former teammates, and friends as a fantastic guy and a fantastic teammate and a very talented hockey player. And also we have to remember that, like, it also should be turned as a way, as a learning experience for hockey and as a warning. And maybe, and this, because this is unfortunately how safety regulations get made, is by accidents happening and by people getting hurt or dying. Like, that's just the way it works. It's the same way, like, concussion protocol, like, it happens because people get hurt here. Like, that's why there's concussion laws in Canada in sports, because someone died after getting multiple concussions. And that's just how it happens. And it's unfortunate that it's had to happen this way. But at least, now the safety of the sport has increased.
Yeah, because like I've been to 2 Elite League games since this happened. The first one was Manchester's first game back after it happened, and it was a very emotional night. There was like a massive tribute to Adam Johnson before. I don't think anyone wasn't crying, because it's such a small sport. It's a small community. So like something like this obviously hits us very, very hard. But it was a really nice first game back. And even then I noticed, because both the games I've been to since it happened were against Belfast. And I think a majority of, if not all, Belfast players I noticed were already wearing neck guards even the first game back. So it's like, it's already like been very well implemented obviously in some clubs better than others. But I know Belfast have been big on it, and they've immediately gone, right, if you want it, wear it, please. I think the last game I went to, all but one player was wearing a neck guard. So obviously now, like, people know what has happened. They now know, like, they probably should be wearing a neck guard, because it's not, like, obviously they've developed them to, like, not be thick, not be clunky, to not make it difficult to move. So it's a lot safer for them and a lot easier for them to wear it. And like, I hope that, like, this, like, big movement of British hockey players wearing neck guards does kind of transfer over to the NHL and to other big leagues, because it's important to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that if they can see that, like, almost an entire league, they're going to be mandatory from the start of January. Like, if we can see that an entire league has mandated net guards and it's not affected how they're playing and it's not affected the game or anyone's experience, that more NHL players will start wearing them, because I know
There were a couple Leafs in today's practice
Leafs.
who wear them. It was Bertuzzi, Giordano, and Benoit. I have the tweet pulled up from Mark Masters.
I was going to say, I really
looking for. While you were talking, I was looking for that tweet. Yeah, it was but like, you have to think about how wild of a style guy Tyler Bertuzzi is. If you watch him, he is like jersey sleeves pulled up. He's got no knob. Like, for him to wear a net guard is a pretty big statement. And also think about the fact that 40-year-old Marcie and Emma, and hockey players are probably the worst creatures of habit in the entire world. So a guy like Marcie and Emma, who's so, comfortable in his gear and the way that, what he puts on to play a game of hockey, for him to change his setup at year 40 is a huge statement to players of the league. And you see that as well. Like, it's TJ Oshie on the Caps as well, who has a company that makes these sort of, they're like turtlenecks, but they've got the neck guard built into like the turtleneck. So they're like a little swanky turtleneck. Which I think look great. I love the look of turtleneck.
I love how they look, and I'm like, I'm not being funny.
All the time. I wear turtlenecks under my hockey jerseys all the time. So I think if players do it on the ice, I think it also looks just as good. And the more big names you have wearing it, the more you're going to have younger. Like, you also have to think about the fallback of this, of like, if you have big name players at the top of the league, at the top of the National Hockey League, wearing these neck guards, it's going to filter back down through hockey, youth hockey as well, because these kids growing up right now playing hockey are going to look up to the big stars, maybe kids, TJ Oshie fans. I'm trying to think of what other maybe a kid's a really big Mark Giordano fan. Who knows?
As they should be.
There's someone out there who's a big Mark Giordano fan. Who's not? But I don't know if there's some kid in like North York or something who's, shout out to that kid, who's a big Mark, but who look up to these players and see, oh, look, they're wearing a neck guard. And if they don't like wearing, they're going to be more inclined to wear one. And I think, we'll see that more and more as it's starting to become something that's mandatory in the junior, the junior levels of hockey. So in the CHL, a couple of leagues in there, I think WHL is one of them who've made it mandatory. And there's a couple of that strongly recommended them. And I think we'll see that, like, hockey players they'll get so used to them. It's something that has to be worn at international tournaments. I know, like, World Juniors, they have to wear them there as well. So I think it's like something that they're going to become more and more used to as they have to wear it through their hockey career, that by the time they get to the NHL, they're like, why wouldn't I wear one now that, if the NHL still doesn't implement a rule that they're mandatory? It's going to be one of those things similar to helmets at warm-ups, and it's going to be like the face shields, the half shields, the visors, that it's going to be like players are probably going to be able to get grandfathered in. If the league decides to make that a rule that players have to wear neck guards, there's going to be guys who are going to get grandfathered in, because you can't, like, players are going to riot. That's just the way it all works. Hockey players are weird. But I think that's all you want to talk about on this, right? We've covered everything.
Yeah, I just want to add, on a happier note.
Oh, you have a good story? I was looking for one and I couldn't find one. You have a good news story, because it's a little quick one. Okay, Marcie.
Yeah, it's a really quick one, but it's just something.
We're gonna have a segment where it's just Marcie comes with a good news story.
I'm gonna save the day. The Nottingham Panthers have retired the number 47. Which is just, obviously, it's sad that
that's just how they're retiring it, but it's nice
it's nice to see that they are retiring it, and
it will be honored.
They've done so much. Like, the whole league with it has been amazing. Like, even outside,
with
where Manchester's there,
there's
a memorial for him out there. And it's like right outside where you're lining up to go in, so like everyone sees it. So it's like, and they've got like books of condolence that you can write in, and
that's really, really awesome.
I know at Manchester when I went, they made little AJ 47 pins and they were selling them to like raise money. So I've got a big pin that
I know.
I have
Yeah,
in the bag.
both you and Cal have matching pins as well, right? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we got Alex Oldale pins, and then when I went with my parents, they bought
Shout
the
out to
big.
Cal, by the way.
Oh, Cal, love you.
Cal's gonna listen to the whole episode and is gonna
like
Shout
right
out.
at the end. We'll just drop it up like, yeah, Cal. There is a Cal mention at some point, but we're not gonna say when.
Well, I had Simon actually text. Oh, another Simon mention. He's gonna text me about this again. But I had Simon text me being like, "Oh, a Simon mention," because we mentioned him last. For those who don't know, because I feel like people don't know, Simon's my boyfriend. He's a big Nets fan, so you can probably see him maybe be a little bit of misery every so often. He will tweet something out that me and Marcie will somehow quote to with something that is Leafs related. So,
always.
Yeah,
It's my favorite thing to do.
Oh, it's so great. But yeah, shout out to Cal and Simon.
Just get that in
Alright.
there, squeeze it in.
Oh, absolutely. So is that all? Is that all we got?
Yep, I've got everything ticked off.
All right. It was a longer episode than it was last week. I think we discussed a lot of awesome things, for sure. So we will be back next Monday. I think we're gonna try and stick to the Monday, Thursday schedule, at least now leading to Christmas. There may be some changes, just because we have lives, but thank you guys for listening to another one. Follow us on Twitter. Do it. We're hilarious over there, and we're also, live tweeting Leafs games all the time over there.
If you want to hear someone missing Justin Hall at a level that is just really worrying, like beyond what is considered healthy, follow me. Because I talk about them a lot.
Go ahead. So Marcie's Twitter is at 60Leafs. Mine is at PRB1. You can also see those in the show notes as well as on our show Twitter, which is at From the Fourth Line. Follow all three of those accounts. They're great.
Go for it.
Without further, thank you. Thank you for listening. We will see you next time. Enjoy your Thanksgiving weekend to all of our American fans. To all of our non-American fans, happy Thursday. Thank you. All right. Goodbye.
Bye.